curling corners with overhangs, Bambu Lab A1 continued issues, and taking a look at intermittent loops on perimeter walls. All this and more Print Fix Friday, episode 142. Let's get into it. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, you're struggling getting your 3D printers printing properly, we can help you here. You can reach out to us on all the social medias, tag us directly, use the hashtag PrintFix, and we'll do our best to help you out. In fact, there are a couple of fan-submitted failures in this episode today. We're gonna start off with a really cool camera angle. Like, it caught my attention because of the camera angle. The actual reasoning for it is pretty simple in my opinion, but the camera angle and how well they captured it, super cool. Take a look. So we have what appears to be an ender, but they got their camera basically at a perfect 90-degree angle from the actual printer. So you can not only see the layers, but see how they're put down. The issue that the individual is having is the curled edges here. And, well, that is a cooling problem. So as we can see, the printer stops. You see when it does that stop? It is heating that little area much longer than the rest of the part, and it instantly moves out of the way as soon as it picks up. So your regular cooling with that fan is not going to do anything. There are a couple of options here that can make things work better. The top one being increase the retraction speed. The faster you retract, the faster you'll be able to get off of that material. You can also increase your cooling, being that this is an ender of some sort. I'm assuming it's an ender 3. What variant? Who the heck knows? But this is a cooling issue. And on the ender 3s, you only get cooling on one side. If this is a different printer, maybe you have multi-side cooling. But I will say outside of, we see a line right about there, the rest of the part looks pretty good. I don't know if I'd be too concerned about that lifted corner a little bit. If you add some extra Z-hop, you'll be able to pop over it anyways and not really run into it. But it is definitely because that nozzle is staying at that position for too long. A little bit of extra cooling would go a long way, but if you just increase the retraction speed and maybe even add a nozzle wipe during the retraction, that should move the nozzle around a little bit to assist that. Next up, the second week in a row that Omaha 3D Prints is hanging out on Print Fix Friday. This is their Magneto X. Yes, there are Magneto X printers finally making it out to users, but unfortunately, Omaha here is having some problems. And, yep, it's too cold. And the best thing when you see issues like this is crank the temperature. The Magnetos haven't, I'm going to go with interesting designed hot end that means that your thermistor is like way far away from the nozzle. And the latest firmware does accommodate for that temperature difference. When we were doing beta testing, we would notice 30+ degrees C at the nozzle tip than what it was actually reading. And other users, one of which who actually went through and installed a thermistor into the tip of a nozzle, confirmed that, yeah, they were running way hotter than you expected. And so if Omaha just went from the old firmware to the new firmware without adjusting any profiles, yeah, you're printing way colder than you think. And on these machines that can run super fast, like the Magneto is the fastest printer that we own. I still worry about my table every time that we show that video, but the table is fine. This is indicative of not enough temperature. For PLA, this looks like it's PLA, when you are printing fast, you need to add temperature. Yes, if you're using something like Luke's Laboratories Tube, still a ridiculous name for a hot end. Luke is going to be a future podcast guest. We're going to talk all about the Tube, as well as some other super secret projects that Luke is working on. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and if you do want to see that kind of thing, make sure to get subscribed, and hey, leave a like. Doesn't cost you a dime. It helps the channel immensely. And if you do want to support us, there are ways to do that financially for as little as $1 a month, and the $10 here. And how you get to come hang out with myself and all of our awesome fans in our private Discord server. But when you do print fast, you gotta add heat. When you're shoving that much material through a hot end, if you don't have a really long melt zone to get that material molten before it comes out of the nozzle, and that is evenly molten, you're going to have a problem. And nozzles that don't separate the filament into multiple paths will have an issue where the outside is totally fine, but the inside is still a little bit cold. We'll actually see this in a later fail in this episode, so stay tuned for that. The way to combat this is, one, slow the printer down, but we ain't got no time for that. So instead, you can just increase the temperature, because it does the same thing. Right? Yes, you will be overheating the exterior shell of the filament. There's not too much that you can do to solve that problem. That just kind of is what it is. That's life. That's life. That's life. But outside of a little bit of extra stringing, you're actually going to see some benefits up to at least a certain temperature, where you're going to get better interlayer bonding. And yeah, you get a little bit of stringing, but a butane torch will solve that lickety-split. Next up, continuation of the Bambu A1 saga. We've warned you all, but we have multiple people complaining about Bambu A1s where they originally opted to do the DIY option. And now Bambu's basically saying, no, please don't. Work with Micro Center. They'll take back the printer and we'll deal with it. Well, we have Tripod's Garage. You're saying, hey, Bambu, I purchased an A1 in December 23rd of 2023 and have not been able to use it per your bad cable thing. Per your email, I reached out to my local Micro Center and they have been crickets for a long time. I put in 2 more tickets with you and nothing. And so we can see the Tripod purchase it through an official reseller distributor, and to receive the same solution, they request that you contact the reseller. They've communicated all necessary details with all the A1 resellers and distributors, ensuring that they are well informed, capable of providing you with the identical solution. If you encounter any challenges in obtaining assistance from a reseller, please kindly inform us and we will promptly address the issue. The first part of that is, hey, you purchase it with a reseller, go talk with them, they're going to handle it. The second part of it, though, is, hey, if you encounter issues, reach out to us, and Bambu has been silent. Positron 3D is dealing with a similar issue. They've also been silent on our request for a full replacement printer. Extremely frustrating. We can see here on April 28th, 2024, they recently reached out to Bambu. On May 18th, they said, I'd like to replace my whole printer, and nothing. Crickets. On May 28th, they finally said, please acknowledge I want to replace the whole printer. This is Nomad's Galaxy, the individual that we've shown here before, who has had some small issues with his Bambu A1, especially because he's been running it when he shouldn't. Nomad, you've been a podcast guest, dude. Come on. You got to get this stuff right. Stop running your fire hazard printer. We'll card to his episodes. You guys can take a look. Now, we did mostly talk about Positron because that's his big thing. He's the general manager of the Positron project. But this is not customer service at its finest. And we said it from day one. Bambu is trying to go after the big boys, aka Prusa Research. With going after Prusa, you have to provide at least something close to what Prusa has. Call me a fanboy. Heck, you could even call me a shill now, since theoretically, I'm filming this video early, but theoretically, we have fully built a Mark IV on stream. If I got it right, and I got it all done, I should have a working Mark IV by the time this video goes live. Prusa has the best customer support of any company that we have ever dealt with in this industry, bar none. Period. You can go to their website 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, chat. If you're selling a product that is in the same price class, regardless of how this technology competes, if you don't have good customer service, your appliance that does just work for you, as soon as it stops working for you and there isn't an appliance maintenance technician that you're willing to pay for, because 3D printer repair shops exist. Hi, I run a 3D printer repair shop, among other things, here at 3D Musketeers. So, Bambu, we've talked about this. Hell, I talked about this in our 6-month review, where I said, you guys really have to get your customer support moving. I was happy to give Bambu a few months to get it figured out. It does not take a long time with a proper training manual and proper hiring procedures to build a customer support arm of a business. It just doesn't. Right? Pay people well, have good hiring practices, have a phenomenal manual that they can run through to help people solve their problems. And realistically, you can get people through in a day or two with back and forth email, chat support, the quasi support that Bambu currently runs. Yeah, but they're not doing that. It's been over a year, and Bambu support, from what I can tell, has gotten worse. And yeah, the A1 has not helped this at all, right? That is potentially tens of thousands of printers that are out in the world with every single one of those people needing help. Every single one of them needs it. So yeah, there's a bit of a problem there. I offered my assistance. Not only was I turned down, I was called a liar somewhat publicly in their blog. They never did issue a retraction. Funny how that worked. Anyways, I believe that we have a problem here. You can't sell a product to an industry like this and just not have support for it. This is unacceptable. And sure, the A1 is not all that expensive, but that's a lot of money that people have had tied up, and having no real safe way to use that machine. And we are definitely seeing more failure issues with X1 carbons lately, like mechanical failures. I'd love to know if you have an X1 carbon and you've had it for a while. Like, I'm looking at like Kickstarter backers, maybe ones that have gotten it within the past 18 months. Have you started noticing any hardware things? I want to try to compile what preventative maintenance looks like for the Bambus, what non-preventable maintenance looks like, so things like the piezo sensors on the bed. How long should somebody expect those to last? Because you have to look at amortizing out the cost of ownership. Because when you're looking at using these machines for business, regardless if I think they should be or not, there's a huge data issue. We'll card to that video. Love it or hate it, it exists. And if you run a business with Bambus, please understand what you're doing with your data and your customers' data. I think that understanding what the life cycle of these machines look like is important, because I don't want to see a bunch of them end up in landfills because people are too lazy to do the maintenance. You guys let me know your thoughts down below. Next up, my buddies over at Deposition Sound, and we had a huge time talking with these guys over at the Rocky Mountain Rep Festival. Card to that interview, so guys can take a listen, I should say. Deposition Sound makes 3D printed speaker kits where you buy all the components from them, comes literally all the components that you would need outside of the speaker boxes, which you 3D print with files that they have available, which is super freaking cool. I really like it. We have a kit for the FDM5, and we will be building it. They are dealing with some issues, saying these little intermittent loops are inner walls and are just far apart enough to trigger a retraction. Having 40 of these in a row really chews up your filament, causing a bulge to form and preventing entry into the heat break, jam, and failed print. This can often be from like a heat creep issue, or just generally speaking, it is filament being work hardened. Besides increasing the travel distance threshold, how can I suppress this in the slicer? Bambu Studio. Maybe I need to tweak the model a little bit. Couple of things. One, you can tweak the model. So having the walls be a variation of the nozzle width that you expect to print in thickness is the best way to do it, right? But Bambu Studio and Orca Slicer, for that matter, use the classic slicer method. If you just change it over to Arachne, all of this problem goes away. It's the big thing with Arachne. And in fact, we interviewed James von Kessel, the guy, or one of the guys, behind all of this with Arachne. Card to it so you guys can look. It's a really cool podcast back when Arachne first came out, because it revolutionized the way that we would look at things. Arachne will effectively adjust your printing width, okay, dynamically. So in areas where it's a little bit, it will just pump out a little bit more plastic. And so Arachne allows for sharper corners because it can also pump out less plastic, and it allows for cleaner prints that have less of this. Because if you're making a speaker kit, especially if you're going to make one that is mildly translucent, you will see that in your part, and it's going to look really weird. Arachne will solve this issue. Now, I don't exactly know what they're printing, because if we look here, this is nothing that we know from Deposition Sound. Now, I'm interested in this because I don't know what it is. So you guys should tell me what it is. You have my number. You should text me and say, hey, Grant, this is what we're working on, because I want to know. We can all see a retraction test. No, but yeah, it's turn on Arachne. Just turn on your Arachne instead of classic slicer. It is going to slow things down, right? Because you're going to start hitting a volumetric flow rate cap on your hot end. So it will slow your print down a little bit. But in this case, it will produce a much better result. When you're trying to make parts look pretty, hey, that's all that matters. And quite frankly, if you have a bunch of these little tiny retractions happening, Arachne might actually end up speeding it up rather than slowing it down. We can see a lot of people are referencing Arachne. I did too. So hope it works out, guys. Best of luck. And hey, if you ever want any more testing, I got you. Next up, a fail from Unstable Culture. Ran into an interesting issue and a little puzzled. What happened with this print? Top layer came out okay, but the sides came out like it was wet filament or something. Printed with a 0.6 hardened steel. Any suggestions will help. So we've got a some sort of skull box here. Side looks like crap. Top looks like it's over extruded a lot. James Kerbal, though, stepped in and said, okay, so we figured out the issue. I was printing too fast for the temperature. The filament was suggested temp of 215 to 230, and I was at 220 C, but print speed was 250 with a max flow of 14 cubic millimeters per second. And forgot needed to up the temp for the larger nozzle and harden nozzle, so push the temp to 240. I should have known better too. I should have asked what speed they were printing on. I appreciate when it's an easy solution that I get wrong. I think it's very valuable because it reminds you that often it's not the crazy complicated thing. It's not wet filament. It's almost never wet filament, but it can be something very simple. And that simple solution is often the easiest. But I'm glad that worked. Yeah, when you're running a fatty nozzle and you're running it at dummy speeds, because I don't think you're going to hit anywhere near 250 millimeters a second at 14 cubic millimeters per second with a 0.6 nozzle, but hey, that's just me. You definitely needed to up the temp, and it's a hardened steel nozzle. I should have known better. I didn't even think to say up the temp, but yeah, totally this is temperature related. Glad it got figured out. But the things that do have me figured out are all of our channel members whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Thank you for what you all do in making these videos possible. Remember, if you do want to support the efforts that we do here, links are down below. But that is all we have for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones and check your temps every now and then. And as always, keep making awesome. Click the links below me. Have a good one.